What if the secret to doubling your revenue as a health expert wasn't about launching something new, but rather it was about refining who you're already speaking to and who you're already most qualified to serve? In today's episode, I'm sharing a behind the scenes excerpt from one of our Nourished Business Accelerator coaching calls. And it's one of those conversations that can completely change how you see your business. You'll hear me coach one of our members through a powerful niche refinement process. This is the exact kind of clarity work that allows our clients to scale from $5,000 or $10,000 months to consistent $20,000 months and beyond without just adding more to their plate. We talk about what it really takes to make your niche high ticket. And it's not just about demographics, it's not about your pricing, and it's definitely not about building a super complicated funnel. It's actually about something far simpler and far more profitable once you see it. So if you've ever felt like you're working so hard in your business, but your growth feels harder than it should, this episode is going to show you exactly where the bottleneck is and how to fix it fast. So let's dive in.
You and I have been chatting about my niche. I think you have made me really go back to basics and really just get very clear on who is my ideal client, who do I really want to work with more so. And we were going back and forth in our chat on Circle. And I know you asked me about what aspect of my niche doesn't feel like high ticket, sustainable enough. And I think I keep going back to more of the who. And so I know I've played around with different age groups, like women 35 plus, women 40 plus. I was even thinking, do I even narrow this even more and only work with retirees? I think that's still where I'm a little stuck, hesitant, just curious how I could refine this even more just to make it truly high ticket,
Is there somebody that you've worked with who invested significantly with you that you would say, I would love to have 100 more of that person if I could just like clone them?
Yes, I would say there's actually probably a few, but I think I'm still struggling to figure out what's the commonality between all of them because they are all different ages. They all have slightly different starting points and some of that stuff.
If you had to pick one of those people and I was like, all right, I'm literally going to clone them and you're going to work with that same person for the next 10 years and you won't get bored, I promise. There'll be different reasons why it's fun, but it's the same person, same problem, same demographic, same personality. Do you have somebody in mind that you're like, oh yeah, I would be happy to work with that person over and over?
Yes. And well, the reason I sound very hesitant as I'm saying yes is, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm thinking of the one person who I think genuinely just feels more like a friend now. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of thinking about who else I want to continue to work. You know what I mean?
I don't know if it disqualifies the person. Did they pay you money to get your help?
Yes.
Did they pay you an amount that you're happy with?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not like you were like doing discounts for them or, oh, it's a friend of mine that I just coach for free. Like it's a real person who came to you, bought your services, and you've worked with them for a period of time. And now you have a friendly relationship that's come from that purchase.
Yes.
Okay. Then we're good. When you work with somebody long enough, obviously there's like professional boundaries, but when you work with somebody long enough and you're like, oh, I actually just really like you as a person, that's great, right? So do you remember, well, first of all, how long have you been working with this person?
3 years.
Okay. Do you remember what the original reason they came to work with you was?
Yes. So postpartum, just had her first kid maybe a couple months ago and realized she could like barely get up and down off the floor.
And had she been following you for a while, or was that kind of a serendipitous discovery? Like, where did she find out about you?
Actually very random and serendipitous. So long story, actually, I really resonated with what you're telling Sarah, because I feel like I did that for the first probably few years of starting my business, just making connections, getting out there, connecting with, coaches and doctors and all that kind of stuff. And so I know I actually a few times went on this app called Next Door. If you've ever, it's a kind of a local neighborhoody, right, sort of app. So I randomly just happened to go on and post about, hey, this is me. This is what I do. Our house had a detached garage gym. So I was seeing actually one-on-one clients like in the back. And I was like, people in my neighborhood, if you wanted to come,
Yeah.
with me sort of thing. So she happened just to see that post and it maybe was just the timing of it, realizing, oh, she's in my neighborhood. She knows what she's doing. And so, yeah, very not the traditional way of maybe actually how people find me now.
I think that's something to say for thinking smaller sometimes, right? I mean, kind of like what I was saying to Sarah, like it's called Ladies of Holly Springs Facebook group, and people gently promote their services, their businesses in there all the time. Obviously, it's very local, but you can start very local and get clients very local. It doesn't have to be like nationwide for it to be an online business. That said, so the postpartum can't move feels bad. I mean, I could probably speak to at least some of this as far as not feeling great physically after giving birth. Obviously, there's a lot of women that have babies, very common life practice to have children, right? And so, how many women that are active before having kids, even active through their pregnancy? I know for me, I'm generally still working out through most of the pregnancy. And then they have their baby and their body just feels like, what the heck is going on? I'm moving out of that phase, but I generally feel pretty bad postpartum because I'm just like in a really bad position. And it takes months for me to get back to a place where I feel like I can move. And even then it's like, okay, I'm still actually not doing things as well as I could be because I'm used to training without the alignment changes. And now my core is super weak and I have to like get my core back before I can squat the way I used to squat, that kind of thing. So I do think there's definitely a strong need for that. And for the woman who has been active in the past and doesn't necessarily know how to modify what they used to do to get back into the level of fitness that they want to be in as a mom, and then obviously layer in all the child care stuff. That is something that for the right person, obviously not every single mom is going to want to spend money on themselves like that, but for the right person, that could be super compelling for that to be the focus. I'm not saying you have to. Other than liking her as a person, is there anything about your experience working with her that makes her extra attractive as a client?
I guess it's more of a mindset thing, but I think she's very willing to lean into the rethinking, relearning sort of thing. I don't think she was the most active person pre-pregnancy. I think she's very much a woman who was a lot more active in her 20s. And then once that late 20s, early 30s hits, that just declines. So I think she realized the way she was approaching fitness when she was younger, in her 20s, single, no kids, is not the way, like maybe she thought it would have to be done that way. But I think she and I working more together, I think she realized, oh, it doesn't have to be the same way as what I was trying to do 20 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's answering your question, but that's just kind of something that comes to mind.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously not everybody is like this, but I would imagine a lot of women after they've had a baby, like you get humbled pretty fast with just how fast your body changes. And especially right after you're giving birth, it's like, oh my God, I've literally never felt so weak and incapable of normal movement. Like we actually have a neighbor that just had their first baby, and her husband had to like tell her that she couldn't do another lap around the neighborhood with us because she was like, oh, I'll come with you. And we just did a walk, but I'll come with you. And her husband's like, oh, I don't think that's a good idea. And literally walking half a mile after having a baby is, for me at least, was like, oh, I don't even know if I can do this. So I do think the experience can be very disorienting and like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do to get back to any sort of normal movement, let alone the level of activity that I was doing before having kids. And so I think for women that have that growth mindset, they would be willing to start from scratch with like beginner's mindset around like, okay, I'm going to learn a new way of doing this because the way I used to do things literally can't work right now. So again, not every woman's going to be like that, but I think the experience of childbirth is enough of a transformative experience that they're more likely to be open to like, let's do things differently because everything in my life is different now. So all that to say, I do think that this theoretically could be an audience that wants specialized attention, expertise. The pain and discomfort piece, I think, is huge because you're already not feeling great because of sleep deprivation and, maybe you're breastfeeding and there's like, I'm 20 pounds heavier than I was before I had kids, blah, blah, all the things. And it's like, add insult to injury. Now I'm trying to work out and it's like, oh my God, I'm like, I can't even move because something hurts or something's out of alignment or whatever. So I think for that person, they could be more likely to want to spend money working with someone who they can trust that actually knows what they're doing versus just going to some Joe Schmo trainer that doesn't understand mechanics and is just going to do their regular bodybuilding workout and has no understanding of how you might need to adjust things for that particular situation. So that could be a good audience to hone in on, not the only one necessarily. If it's not postpartum specifically, what would be a common thread? What makes her similar to someone else that you really loved working with?
I think this is also what I'm toying around with. Like, how do you describe women, right? Like active women or trying to be active women, not like athletes, but I know a lot of people I do work with have described themselves as like, yeah, like never being an athlete. So wannabe athlete or something like that. I don't know. I think what it boils down to is the messaging, like how I'm speaking about it, how I'm describing them. Like you said, sometimes I tend to forget now that I'm so deep into this. It brings me back to what words are they using, not, the words that I would use to describe them. So I'm curious if that is, I don't want to say the root problem, but the struggle I feel like I'm still having. It's like the description messaging part of that, not so much like identifying the niche itself.
Well, and the reason why it's important is because when you're putting content out, you're making offers, you want to know why they should care and why they would spend money on it, right? And so the what's in it for them does have to relate to what their values are, what their goals are, what their problems are, all of that. And so if you don't have a clear idea in your head about who is this offer best suited for, it is hard to create resonant content, whether that's Instagram or your next door post. It just gets harder, especially with the bigger numbers of competitors and all the AI stuff. There's just more coming at people on a regular basis. So the information that you're putting out has to catch them, right? It has to catch their attention. It has to like trigger an emotional response. It could be a postpartum mom that physically is not recovering well and wants to get back into some sort of routine of exercise, but doesn't know what to do with this weird body that she's got now that's in pain and not feeling like she can do anything the way that she used to be doing things. It could be just generally somebody who's had some sort of incident that changed how their body functions. So maybe they had a car accident, maybe they had an injury, maybe they had a surgery or something where it's like their body's different now and they want to get back to feeling strong and capable and flexible and active and whatever that looks like, right? Maybe it's walking a mile around the block, or maybe it's doing CrossFit, or maybe it's taking hikes, right? It doesn't necessarily matter what the activity is, but that could be something where you help people who have had some sort of life event that created pain, injury, dysfunction, that kind of thing. And now they don't know how to move in a way that feels good and they want to be able to do that. That could be the bigger theme versus it just being you had a baby. So like we're kind of looking at like, okay, you could expand the topic, you could get really focused. There's probably some happy medium there because like really broad would be I'm a trainer, I help people train, right? Like super broad. Really narrow would be I help moms that had their first baby over 40 and used to be super active and have pelvic floor dysfunction and want to not pee when they do squats, basically, right? Like if we wanted to be like super, super focused, I think that's probably excessive. So then what's the middle ground that's specific enough that it catches people's attention and is like, oh yeah, it's exactly what I'm looking for, but not so specific that it's excessively specific and unnecessary. The space I'm kind of exploring right now in this conversation is it a particular phase of life? Is it a particular experience that they've had? Is it a particular goal? You have mentioned that pain is part of it, sounds like.
Yeah.
So if we want to peel that onion, why are they having pain typically for your ideal clients? Can you think of what would be the typical reason your ideal clients are experiencing pain?
Yeah, because they're not active. They're just like, I don't want to say frail, but no, I hate using these words, frail and weak and stuff like that. But typically I do find it's probably just because they're underloaded, right? They haven't lifted weights, they haven't trained, they haven't exposed themselves to like stress enough. And I do think pain, again, yes, it can come from some acute traumatic sort of injury, but I do think once that kind of has healed, if it perpetuates, it's usually just because of an under preparation sort of thing.
Okay. Do you think they're super self-aware that your approach is what they're looking for?
I get, at least for the people who go throughout my application, find me on Instagram, go through my application process, I definitely get the feeling they've followed me enough or have absorbed my content enough to realize that's probably more of the issue. Because I think I talked to a lot of that idea of just continuing to do more basic PT is not going to help. Just getting more imaging done is not going to help. Seeking more information, right, is not probably moving you forward. So the time span of maybe them developing that awareness, maybe understanding this is actually more of the problem, and then actually reaching out to me, following through on all of that it's maybe a long time frame for them to.
So those people might have kind of a long sales cycle. Are you okay having a business that requires a really long sales cycle for people?
I think that's the problem. Exactly what I'm running
Okay.
at the moment. Yeah.
And again, it's not to say that you can't still work with people like that, but it is helpful to have a niche where you don't have to nurture somebody for 12 months before they're going to buy from you. Ideally, I would love for you to have a specific niche that somebody could find out about you and then apply to work with you within a week. Maybe that's the same person, but you know better than me if somebody who's not training enough would be someone who knows within 7 to 30 days that what you do is what they're looking for. Versus, again, the one you mentioned that was postpartum and she was in a lot of pain and was like, I can't even move around with my baby. That's a much more acute, I need help. Who can help me kind of mindset.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to circle back to the original question, you were asking about what's high ticket, right? Generally, high ticket is someone who knows they have a problem. It's a significant problem, and they just want somebody to help them fix it ASAP. They're willing to do the work. They're not looking to be rescued, but they are like, as soon as I find someone who sounds like they can help me, I'm going to spend money on that. So that's the kind of filter we want to be thinking about, because we want to make sure we can sell fast to people. Doesn't mean that you might not nurture somebody for years. I know I have people in this program that had been following me for years and finally joined it. So that's not a bad thing to have that, but we generally don't want your whole business model to revolve around excessive nurture to get a sale. And maybe this is just something you need to noodle on a little bit and come back and we can keep thinking about it, keep talking about it. But I would love for you to be thinking about who is the person that could find out about your skill set, find out about your expertise, find out about your business, and immediately be like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. And they could apply to work with you within a week.
Okay. I'll have to think about that.
Does anything come to mind as far as what that could be?
I mean, I honestly go back to the first person I mentioned because she literally saw that post on Nextdoor and called me right away, came and saw me, I think, like 2 days later. And then, yeah, I think I sold like a 6-month package. And now she's been like a 3-year plus client and has referred me. I worked with her friend. Her friends like very much kind of spread from there.
From a personal anecdote perspective, I haven't trained with my trainer since I had my second baby, but there's a variety of reasons for that. And I started working with him in 2014. So I basically on and off trained with him for like 11 years at this point. The only offs I've had was babies, right? So pretty much had been consistently training across those 11 years. I joke that I didn't sign up for an 11-year program. I signed up for probably like a 3-month commitment or something. But the reason I ultimately ended up signing up to work with him was because I had been in a minor car accident. Maybe, I don't remember how many months it was. It was probably like 3 to 6 months before that had happened, or before I signed up to work with him. And I'm a former athlete, generally pretty competent working out. I'm not a total newbie or anything back then, even. But because I had that car accident, I was having trouble getting back into a workout routine because certain things that used to be fine before the car accident were not fine anymore. And I felt nervous about, well, I don't want to hurt myself more. I'd gotten a mild concussion. For me, it was disruptive to my work because I was forgetting words and stuff. And I had to take some time off of work to be able to recover from that. So I didn't want to exacerbate that. I was like, all right, I want to get back into being fit. Let me sign up to work with a trainer for a little bit and I can get back into a routine and he can customize things for me so that I can make sure my form's good. I can make sure I'm modifying as necessary. And then literally that just turned into 11 years of training with him because I was like, oh, this is actually really effective. It's nice to go to the gym and not be sweating at the end and not be like, I can't sit on the toilet afterwards, but I'm still getting really strong. So the benefits that came from 11 years worth of training were different than the reason I started working with him in the first place. But the original impetus for me reaching out, paying the money, going to train with him when I already knew how to work out technically was car accident. I'm in pain. I don't know how to move my body now. I don't know how I'm supposed to adapt my workouts, and I need help because I don't want to live like this. I don't want to lose my athleticism. I don't want to lose my fitness because I don't know how to work out with all this that's going on. So I'm just using that as an example to say that before I had that car accident, would I've specifically gone and sought out a trainer? I don't know. It's hard to say because, like, who knows? It's a different timeline or whatever. But that wasn't like a big priority for me. And then I had that car accident, and then it was a big priority. So I'm not saying you have to go with that. It's your business. So please do not take this as like, Laura's saying this needs to be my niche. But I could imagine that there's a lot of people in your world who would really, if the focus is pain, training without pain, or getting out of pain because you're getting back into physical fitness, that kind of thing. My thought would be someone who's had some sort of incident that changed their body, that now they're like, I don't know what to do with this. I would assume you're going to have a lot more motivation from someone like that than someone who's just generally not an exerciser and is slowly deteriorating and kind of feels crappy. Because a lot of those people, they just assume they feel like that because they're getting older. They're not necessarily like, it's because I'm not like loading myself enough on a week to week basis, right? They're just like, I'm getting old, I'm getting creaky or whatever, versus someone who has that instant, like, okay, a week ago I could work out and now I'm like, oh my God, what's going on with my body? That's a much more acute, like, I need help because I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this. And so whether or not that's actually the direction that you take, that's how I want you to be thinking about things. Because someone who's got an acute, I need help, I don't know what to do, I can't keep doing it like this, that's the high ticket buyer versus someone who is like, oh yeah, it's kind of annoying, but like, oh well, convince me that I should care, right? Then 12 months later, they're finally convinced, which yeah, is nice, but we don't want that to be everybody you work with has to be convinced for 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think sometimes it can be tough because you probably know you can help a lot of people. And probably the people who aren't working out, it's even easier to help them because they're so not doing anything properly that you can get a lot of progress for them. And we have to think about the motivation of the buyer, like what's going to motivate someone like that to invest at a high ticket level versus the person who, again, had that incident where now everything's different and they're stressed about it and they're like, I can't figure this out by myself. So what are your thoughts about all that?
That makes a lot of sense. And now that you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about a lot of my other longer term clients and remembering why they probably started with me in the first place. And I think it always goes back to that. They had probably some very specific pain that was going on that was preventing them from XYZ. I need to solve this. And through our time together, they realized like, oh, this is helpful. This is sustainable. And it was an easy thing to continue on with. So
Yeah.
I guess just kind of speaking to those more life events. I have some pretty crazy, I always go back to I have some clients who have some pretty crazy clinical history stories and things like that. So yeah, it just kind of gets me thinking about using more of those life events to tell the story a little bit versus maybe thinking about my messaging, and what I've been talking more about is longevity and aging. And I think people really resonate with that messaging because it's not the typical maybe aesthetics and stuff like, I mean, not that they probably care about that stuff in some way, shape, or form, but I think they like how I speak from a long term, I guess, like proactive view versus reactive. But from a buyer's point of view, it's not really creating any urgency for them to solve that sooner.
Yeah. And you want them to have internal urgency. We don't want to have to like
Yeah.
create fake urgency for people because I mean that used to work, but really nowadays people are it's just tuned out. They're seeing this stuff all the time. So they're not going to be like, oh, well,
Right.
Shannon said I need to care about this. So I guess I'm going to care about it. We want to speak to the person who already has a high level of internal urgency and is really just needing to hear something said the right way to find the right person. And those people are the ones who apply and invest quickly. And it's important that you noticed that even your long-term clients, their goals probably have changed since they originally signed up to work with you. The goals changing, we don't want to try to speak to that new goal because they're changing their goals based on, I already have been working with you and I already know now there's more I can do. But they didn't know that in the first place to come into your door in the beginning, right? That's another really common issue is you're like, oh, I've been working with this person for 3 years and now we're talking about all this stuff and it's great and I love it. And it's like, maybe people care about that and they don't because they don't even know. They're still at the beginning of the starting line. And so like I work with some one-on-one clients at a much more advanced level and we have conversations around hiring clinical team members and stuff. And I'm like, is that conversation going to attract 99% of the people that join this program? Absolutely not. But it's a problem that now has come up because this person's reaching 30, 40, 50K months, right? And so I don't want to make my messaging around the person who I've been working with for 2 years that's already at an advanced level and she's got more advanced problems and we have that trust that I can advise her on things. I need to think about what is the person who doesn't know me from my next door neighbor and doesn't follow me, but can see one of my ads and within an hour of signing up for a training, literally apply to work with me, which actually just happened yesterday. So that's the kind of speed we want to create in the business. And the messaging for speed like that is going to be much different than the messaging for the long-term nurturing type of person. And it's also going to be different for the person who's got a history of working with you and their understanding and goals have evolved because of their time with you, you know? So that's a very common mistake, using your more advanced clients that have been with you for a while as the people who are like driving the messaging, because they didn't know what they didn't know before they started working with you. And they didn't come to you most likely because of what they're wanting now. They came to you for something else. And we want to go back to like, what was the initial motivation to get in the door? And is that something that can quickly grab attention from a stranger on the internet that can see, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. How do I work with this person? Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And I'm just like, oh my God, has this been my problem for like the last, I don't know, 6 months? Because I've been speaking more to, yeah, like the person I've been working with actually for a long time and not thinking about actually the beginning.
Yeah, it's a really sneaky problem because you get validated on it with the people that you already work with, that you already like,
Yeah,
oh,
I'm like,
I love
oh.
this. Of course, everybody else will love it. And then in the meantime, these people, it's going way over their head. They don't care. They're like, I'm in pain. And you're talking about XYZ, like having enough load on my muscles to prevent aging. Okay, cool. Sounds like a 10-year from now thing, but let me go to the physical therapist to fix this problem that I'm having. So yeah, just going back to what got them in the door in the first place. And is that something that someone, I mean, I always, for most messaging, it's not all messaging because I kind of mix it up with more of the kind of connect with the higher desired identity kind of stuff too. But if I want to create messaging that's going to get a sale, I always think about, could somebody see this from a paid ad and know it's for them and sign up to work with me and buy from me and spend multiple thousands of dollars to work with me? in the span of days. And if that's a yes, then that messaging is solid. So that can work for somebody who's followed me for a year. Maybe they needed a little bit more time, but I don't want everybody in my audience to need a year before they're ready to work with me.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's very much a problem I'm running into is they've been following me for a while and they resonate a lot. I mean, most people are like, oh, I've been following you for forever. And I've been meaning to like, it blows my mind sometimes. I think I just started working with someone who I think has literally been following me for like over 2 years. And we went back and forth for a while. And I kind of was like, probably it's never going to become a client. And then one day it was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I think she even said, she's like, I knew I was going to work with you someday. And I was like, okay, I don't know. But obviously can't have my entire business like off of just like hoping someone eventually at some point decides that it's time.
Yeah. And again, nothing wrong with those people. Sometimes they're amazing clients and they just needed to be on their own timeline, but we don't want the whole business to function off of multiple year nurturing processes because that's exhausting. It's just frustrating if everyone you're talking to is like, not yet, not yet, not yet, maybe later. And it's like, you're going to run into that sometimes. But if that's the preponderance of the conversations you're having, that is the most frustrating and demotivating thing as a business owner to be like, why do I care more about this than you do? And so if you just decide that that's not how you're going to get clients anymore, you're going to talk to the person who is seeking a solution right now and is ready to buy as soon as you make that connection with them. You'll still get the stragglers, but first of all, they'll move faster because you'll be speaking in a way that's more urgent for them. And then you'll get the people who would have bought a lot faster if they actually knew you could help them the way they want help. So it'll just overall improve your business. And it's very likely that the last 6 months might have been at least partially related to overly focusing on those feet draggers and speaking to things that move them an inch closer versus talking to the person who's already got one foot in your door, essentially.